Okay, everybody, you saw that title. Now let's get right into making this oh so juicy meatloaf. So we're going to be starting out with 2 pounds of 80/20 ground beef. But before we get into seasoning our beef, I just want to show you a little trick to making your meatloaf extra juicy. So we're going to have 2 pieces of white bread, and you're just going to break them up. This is just regular sandwich bread. So you just want to just break it up into pieces. And then the trick to getting them nice and soft, and to stay nice and soft and help your meatloaf be nice and tender, is to add milk to the bread. So here I'm going to be adding milk to our bread, and again for 2 slices you're using just about a 1/4 cup of milk. So you just want to take a spoon and just mash up the pieces, and you can cut them up, you know, finer. You just want to make sure every piece gets nice and soaked. So what you want to do is let this set aside to rest while we go ahead and season our ground beef. Okay, so first things first, let's get some seasoning on this meat. Here we have salt, onion powder, black pepper, paprika, and some garlic powder. So let's go ahead and just mix it all up together and give it a nice sprinkle. And the exact amount will be in the description. So next you want to go ahead and get the seasoning mixed up in our ground beef. So just trying to avoid having too much of a mess. You can work with your hands obviously, but I'm just going to wear gloves today. So this way to try to keep my hands clean. Okay, so now that we have our seasoning mixed up in here, I'm going to go ahead and get our bread that we soaked with our milk before. Here we have it. Nice and mushy, just like you want it. It's nice and soft, and it's going to help you to keep your meatloaf tender. It helps it from becoming so hard, you know, when you bake it. So let's go ahead and just mix that bread in there. And before we completely mix it together, let's go ahead and add 2 additional items. So I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of some Worcestershire sauce. I'm not sure how you say it, Worcestershire or Worcester. So 1 teaspoon. And then a little sprinkle, which I'm going to use the same spoon. Probably get about half of that, of some red chili flakes. Add as much as you like, but I'm using about a half of a teaspoon of red chili flakes. Right? And lastly, we're going to add 1 egg to help bind everything together nicely. So here we're just gonna have 1 egg. Crack that. Okay. Alrighty, now let's go ahead, mix this all together, and then we're going to shape our meatloaf. Okay, now that we have our meatloaf mixed in with the Worcestershire sauce and the breadcrumbs, I almost forgot 1 step. I actually sauteed some peppers and onions and a little bit of garlic. And we're going to just go ahead and incorporate this into our mixture as well before we form our loaf. So let me just glove back up. And again, it's red peppers, some green peppers, onions, and just a teaspoon of minced garlic. And this is going to help really give it a nice flavor. Definitely flavorful meatloaf. I almost forgot about it. Okay, so let's go ahead and form our loaf on our baking sheet. Again, you can use a loaf pan, but I'm choosing to use a baking sheet because I think this is rather large. for the loaf pan that I have anyway. So you're just going to just play with it and get it to the shape that you want it. Okay, just throw some onions and peppers in there. Okay, so this is looking good. So now let's pop this into our preheated 350-degree oven for about half an hour, and then we will check on the progress. Look at that. Okay, everybody, so here's what our meatloaf is looking like after it has been baking for 30 minutes. So what I'm going to do at this point is just cover it with a glaze. And what I'm using is a ketchup and sweet chili mixture. I'm going to show you in 1 second. Let's just go ahead and cover this. You can also use chili sauce. Heinz actually makes chili sauce. You can use that as well, but didn't have it, so what you want to do is just use a ketchup and sweet chili if you have that. You can mix the two and make a nice glaze to go over your meatloaf. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is put it back in the oven and let this continue to cook for at least an additional 15 to 20 minutes. And we will be right back. But as promised, let me show you the chili glaze. So I'm using this mixed with ketchup. All right, everybody. So here is our meatloaf after it has been in the oven for an additional 15 minutes. So once we put the glaze on it, so what I'm going to do now is let's let it rest for about 8 to 10 minutes at least before we cut into it. And then we will be back with a plate. Okay, everybody, here is our finished meatloaf, and this is what it is looking like. That glaze gives it such a nice color. Now we're going to go ahead and give ourselves a plate. As you see, I already made a couple of slices. So here we have it. I just paired it with some broccoli and a little bit of vegetable rice. So let's go ahead and taste it. It is nice and flavorful, definitely tender. The bread inside it really helps it to stay tender and the meat to not get tough. This is definitely one worth trying. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up. As always, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you again next time.